Every current coaster manufacturer is good at something, and today we're going to discuss what every coaster manufacturer does best. Going in order, let's start with Swiss manufacturer B&M. B&M does a lot of things well, to be 100% honest, but I think they do their hypercoaster model best. You can find these coasters everywhere, mostly at major Six Flags or Cedar Fair parks. Over 200 feet tall, many big airtime camelbacks, and an experience that is typically pretty butter smooth. I've also never really heard any major criticisms for B&M Hypers. Little criticisms here and there, but I've never heard anyone say that a B&M Hyper is a bad ride. By extension, I think it is worth mentioning the B&M Giga Coaster, which is basically just an upscale at Hyper, but at the end of the day, I think B&M does their Hypercoaster model a little bit better, and they are much more popular. Big, tall, fast, smooth, crowd pleaser. What's not to like? Transitioning to a much smaller company in Chance Rides, I think it's undoubtedly the Chance Rides Hyper GTX. This coaster is praised by so many coaster enthusiasts. Specifically, Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom, a coaster that is said to have many an airtime moment throughout. I've never ridden it, but judging from POVs, off-ride footage, and people's accounts that have ridden it, it looks like a very fun ride. This is Chance Rides' best coaster model by far, and their biggest, and it will be interesting to see what the new Chance Rides Hyper GTX opening in Arizona next year will feel like because of the launch and inversions it will have. Chance Rides' coaster lineup isn't too expansive, but this is a good one. Great Coasters International, or GCI, does a lot of coasters that are very similar to one another. Specifically, a lot of their Twister coasters are very similar. So I think the best thing that GCI does is some of the more terrain-focused coasters. A couple that come to mind are Wood Coaster in China, which just looks awesome, and Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. These are regarded as two of the best GCIs, and what they both have in common is a layout that is not just a twister on a flat plot of land. It uses terrain and it's in the woods. For most people, Mystic Timbers is going to be a lot more accessible being located in Ohio instead of China, and it looks like a great ride. But to me, Wood Coaster looks like the best coaster GCI has ever drawn up. The use of terrain in that ride is just crazy. And judging from the POV, it just keeps on going, which is really cool. It's always good to get a great long ride. So who knows, maybe if GCI built more terrain type coasters, we'd see more top level GCIs. For Gerstlauer, I picked the Infinity Coaster model. These are more common in Europe than in America, and a lot of them look like really top level rides. This is pretty similar to Gerstlauer's Eurofighter model, but I think overall the Infinity Coaster is a better product. These coasters typically feature a beyond vertical drop and more than one inversion. For those of us living in the US, it's pretty much Monster at Adventureland and Hang Time at Knott's Berry Farm, but both of those coasters are solid. I've only ridden Hang Time and I've heard a lot of good things about Monster. Gerstlauer has some good spinning and family coasters, but I think the Infinity Coaster is their best product. Like GCI, the Gravity Group specializes in wood coasters. And I think what they do best, surprisingly, is their family coasters. I cannot wait to ride one of these little rides because while they aren't very tall and very fast, riders say that there's always lots of airtime to go around. From what I can tell, this pretty much seems like the perfect family coaster. You have thrills to entertain teenagers and adults, but it's not too scary for the little ones. And at the end of the day, you want a ride that is approachable to all ages and fun for all ages, and I think the Gravity Group has done that perfectly. For a company that's built rides like Voyage and Hades 360, the thing they do best is their family coasters. Who would have thought? Intamin is the favorite manufacturer of many, many coaster enthusiasts, and I think what they do best is their multi-launch roller coasters. We're seeing a few more of these open this year, and you can have rides that are more family-friendly like Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, to rides that are much more thrilling like Pantheon. And the trains on the extreme launch coasters like Pantheon or even Velocicoaster are said to be some of the best trains out there. Having comfortable trains is honestly one of the most important parts of a coaster, because if the restraint in train is uncomfortable, it makes it really hard to appreciate the ride. Then, when you throw in theming like Velocicoaster, it makes an all-around amazing coaster. This was a tough one because Intamin does a lot of things well, but this is what I ended up with. For a while, Mack Rides was pretty much Wild Mouse coasters, but that is no longer the case, and I think what Mack Rides does best is their extreme spinning coasters. There have only been 2 built currently, Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City and Ride to Happiness at Plopsaland Japan, the latter looking absolutely insane. Take a traditional multi-launch coaster with some inversions and then make it spin the whole time. That's pretty much what Mack Rides did here. And the result is pretty wild. I'll try not to sound like a broken record, but I really can't wait to get on one of these coasters, and it will probably be Time Traveler that I'll ride first. It just looks like such a cool, unique experience, and from every first-hand account I've heard, it is an amazing ride. This is when referencing Ride to Happiness or Time Traveler. Mack Rides outdid themselves with this one, and they've got a winner. Premier Rides does one thing and one thing only, launch coasters. I was trying to break this down a little bit more, but to be completely honest, I couldn't really think of any huge differences. I could say the Skyrocket 2 model, but I don't even think that's their best work. So I guess pretty much launch coasters in general. I think the top 2 Premier Rides coasters typically are West Coast Racers at Six Flags Magic Mountain, and then the Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast coasters. From what I can tell, Premier Rides doesn't make anything really bad, but they don't make anything really good either. You can count on them to build a launch coaster that will help your overall coaster lineup, but it will not be the best ride in your park. In some ways, it's nice to have a manufacturer like Premier Rides that you can turn to and you pretty much know you're going to get a solid investment. Premier Rides launch coasters is what they do, and it's what they do best. Okay, time for RMC, and I think what RMC does best is their hybrid coaster conversions. The execution of RMC's plan is typically pretty much flawless. Converting an old, aging wooden coaster into the best ride in the park is such a smart idea, and it's worked so well. A lot of these coasters are some of the best in the world, and there's a reason Six Flags bought so many of these. Who would have thought that New Texas Giant would start an entire coaster revolution, but that is exactly what happened. And now other manufacturers are trying to jump on to a certain extent, like GCI having their new Titan track. But to be honest, I don't think anything is going to beat the RMC Hybrid. Because, quite frankly, it's hard to beat perfection. For S&S, it's gotta be their compressed air launch coasters, right? I mean, they don't do a whole lot besides that, and those coasters are typically praised the most because of those extreme launches. That being said, I do think at some point the S&S Axis coaster could become the best S&S product because that ride just looks so cool. But that ride hasn't come out yet, at least it hasn't been installed at a park yet, so it can't qualify for this list. Think of rides like Dodonpa and Max Force. That acceleration to start is unreal. Honestly, S&S might do flat rides better than coasters, but we're talking about coasters here, so that's irrelevant. SPF Visa doesn't have much in the way of thrill coasters, but their figure 8 spinning coaster has been incredibly successful. And it's not hard to see why. This coaster can fit into FECs, parks of all sizes, and it provides a family-friendly experience. They fit into a tight footprint and provide a different ride experience every time because of the spinning. This was brilliance on the company's part, and they have for sure reaped the benefits of it. As far as building their own coasters is concerned, Skyline hasn't been doing it for very long, but their Pescetti Bowl coasters have a lot of promise. Single rail kiddie coasters and the track can light up. How awesome is that? Not only that, but they have a dueling model, which is going to be going to Six Flags Fiesta Texas this year. It seems weird that a major Six Flags park is going to be the first place to install one of these coasters, but hey, Skyline isn't arguing, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they ride. This is the most interesting kiddie coaster on the market, no question about it in my mind, and I'm impressed with what Skyline has done so far with this model. Now, can it translate to the real world and give good, solid rides? We'll see. For a while, Vekoma was pretty much Disney coasters, SLCs, and boomerangs, but that is far from the case now. And we're all very thankful for that, might I add. Anyways, the best Vekomas I think now are their multi-inverting models. I know this isn't too specific, but a lot of these are pretty similar, some of them featuring launches, some lift hills. Europe and Asia has gotten a lot of good Vekomas as of late. In the United States, we are just starting to see these new Vekomas pop up. For the most part, these are seen as just solid rides, but some of them stand out like Let Coaster at Legendia. Vekoma has been doing so much cool stuff overseas, mostly their multi-inverting coasters, and I'm so glad that the United States is finally starting to get some of these investments. Vekoma has put a lot of European theme parks on the map with their major coasters. They are certainly no slouch in the amusement industry anymore. Zamperla doesn't build too many coasters either. They're more known for their kiddie coasters and flat rides, but I think as far as more major coasters go, their spinning coasters are the best ones. They have a new variation of their spinning coaster coming to Cedar Point this year, and it looks like a really cool ride. You also can't forget all the spinning Wild Mouse coasters that Zamperla has done over the years. It's not a whole lot to shout at, but it's something pretty decent. Zera's had some one-off thrill coasters here and there, but I think they do family coasters well. Jaguar at Knott's Berry Farm, Cobra at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, coasters like that. Nothing too crazy, but a good ride for the little kids. I remember Cobra being my first coaster, and I really enjoyed that ride when I was younger. On a trip to Discovery Kingdom, I always look forward to riding Cobra. So, job well done, Zera. So, there you have it, what every coaster manufacturer does best. I'm sure there are disagreements that you may have, and I'd love to hear about them down in the comment section below. And as always, stay tuned for more, and I'll see you all next time.